Welcome again, and thanks for joining me. I'm Dadhichi from astrology.com.au. Introduction to November 2016. And let me say, I've just come back from India, and always a challenge, but certainly getting a lot easier than when I first visited there. Maybe, when was that? 1990 was my first visit. And I had planned to go there simply to visit my aging mentor, who's now almost 80 years old. He fell down the stairs, so I sort of felt that the right thing to do would be to go there, just hang out with him, offer some service if I could to him. He's been very supportive of me and my work over the last 21 years, and has offered me some invaluable advice astrologically, being a brilliant tantric astrologer, which is a very unique form of stellar astrology based on the Hindu Vedic system of astrology. Well, I was quite surprised because what was supposed to be a rather low-key visit, just spending some time with my teacher, ended up being a bit of a media fiasco. My good friend there, Prabhu, the president of Accolade Public Relations in India, had become a reasonably good friend of mine in 2011 when my books with Harlequin, Mills and Boon were released in India, and we did an 11-city tour there. I'd introduced him to my teacher at the time, and was pretty surprised when I learned that he is quite an exceptionally good astrologer. He was there present at the filming of one of the segments we did for one of the big media organisations there, and after that we got to talking about all things astrological, and naturally we kept in touch, and he became good friends with my teacher. And so when I returned this time, he was able to organise some pretty good press for me up there. The interesting thing, apart from me, is just my observation of how, I'm observing this interesting cultural phenomenon. I've got lots of friends and clients in Australia and the US, and it's interesting over the last 30 or 40 years to watch the imbibing of this Hindu culture through such things as hatha yoga, meditation, all of the spiritual disciplines, even Vedic astrology now, which is that Hindu-based form of astrology, is very much in vogue now. But in contrast, looking at the Indian culture, it's fascinating to me to see the way the younger Indians in particular are sort of jettisoning the ancient Hindu customs. So there's like what I'd call a culture swap going on. The West is adopting all of these Hindu and Asian cultures and spiritual practices, whereas the Indians are really into making money, getting their degrees, really westernizing their lifestyles with what's coming out of our Western culture. So I find that rather fascinating. And the interesting thing with me is that being sandwiched between these two cultures, they're always very fascinated by me visiting there and being reasonably well versed in these Hindu forms of astrology. It's rather a sort of a freak show attraction in some ways. White man does Vedic astrology. So it's always good publicity. It's always interesting to see the changes. It's still very, very challenging. The way things are done there. There's this real sort of contrast of spirituality against the practical reality of poverty and filth. And but the interesting thing is, my observation is that a lot of the poor people there are still pretty happy. They have nothing. They live in absolute squalor, but seem to be, I don't know, they just seem to transcend that. It's not sort of on their radar. They're not concerned by that. In contrast, in the West, we have so much We have money, we have affluence, power, position, prestige, all the different modern technologies, mobile phones, and we never seem to be quite satisfied. So I find that really quite fascinating, and I see how now this culture swap, hopefully the two will find somewhere between them where there's a happy medium, where we can, we can have all of these modern conveniences, but at the same time aspire to a deeper, more spiritual sort of approach to the way we live life. My teacher's a fascinating individual. I've known him for over 20 years now. He has initiated me into several, how can I say it, interesting disciplines, which require a lot of chanting, meditation, ritual, rosary, or what they call japa, mala japa, which is doing these specific chants for specific insights into different things. And watching him and seeing him as he's getting older, just how happy he is inside himself. He's been pretty accident prone over the last couple of years. He was up in the Himalayas doing the thing they do when they become very old, that last pilgrimage, dipping in the Ganges. And as he was taking that ritual bath in the Ganges, a freak wave came along and swept him away. He hit his head, was unconscious. They thought he was going to drown. So it was a pretty big drama. The helicopter came up, took him to hospital, and I recall him recounting the story and just laughing his head off, as he did when his father died. And I was sitting here trying to get my head around that. What's so funny about all this stuff? I mean, your father's dead, you nearly died. And now recently when he fell down the stairs, I mean, he was in a lot of pain while I was there, but it was obvious that he wasn't and hasn't been really connected to his identity as a physical body. He is definitely more in tune with that inner component, the awareness, that presence awareness that I talk about. And although that this story that I'm talking to you about seems far removed from the actual principle or practice of astrology, the fact of the matter is that Vedic astrology is called Jyotish in the Vedas. It is considered the eye of the Vedas, that science or study or worship of the principle of light, which is what astrology is about. And that does tie in really with the attitude that I see in my mentor consistently over the years, over decades, and that is one of dispassion and to a large extent, I suppose, an unconcerned attitude to sort of what's going on. He's always telling me, look, don't worry about the money, don't worry about the prestige, the fame, just do what you do to the best of your ability and really, really love that. And you'll see that even if you don't follow yoga or astrology or any of that sort of stuff, you'll see that most successful people are indeed the ones that really enjoy what they do, they're skillful at it. And look, we have to live and earn money, but they are predominantly focused on the precision, the creativity, the love, and the perfection of the work that they do. And that really is the heart of astrology, at least Vedic astrology. It is the unraveling of the karma, or what they call vasanas, the mental, emotional and spiritual samskaras or disposition coming from past lives, our genetic code, if you will. So it's a way for us to, get down deeper into the psyche, below that threshold of consciousness, into what it is that is driving us, and which is in fact our true identity. And that really is the focus of astrology. That's really what I do with it anyhow. I'm more interested in bringing people to an understanding of who they are in their deepest quintessential self. So just a reminder, just tying that in with the trip to India. Good to be back here in the Philippines, and I hope you'll stay around now for the November readings, the brief forecast for each of the 12 signs in Western format, of course. Thanks for joining me. Stay tuned. Bye bye now.